I wanted to ask you a little bit about the episode you directed, Strawberries, because you were in middle school when 9/11 happened. And you said once in an interview that there was like a popular kid in school that convinced everyone at school that you were a terrorist.
Yeah.
And I was curious how the way your self-identity got set at that time, because, I mean, I thought I had a hard time in middle school because I was little and I was bullied and this and that, but I certainly didn't have the whole school thinking I was a terrorist.
well, there was this, it was interesting because there was this, I remember everyone actively trying to figure out if I was Middle Eastern. That was the whole, there was this whole debate because Egypt's in Africa, and I was kind of trying to tell people, no, I'm African, like I'm basically black, and kind of trying to lie.
Your seventh grade brain is saying those things, because like, I gotta spin this in a better direction.
I gotta spin it. Yeah, so much of that episode and really was kind of, what interests me the most is looking at something that is so political from like a really, really human place. And so we see this young kid who all his friends are basically talking about masturbating, and they're like, yeah, I've done it, and he's the only one who hasn't. And that's horrifying. When everyone's talking about this thing and you're the only one who hasn't.
You don't know what the deal is.
That's already 9/11. That's already horrifying, devastating.
This is threat level orange.
Threat level red. I mean, that is already, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's already crazy. And then actual 9/11 happens. And then you see him go even further down, and further. So much of that story was, looking at how does something like that further compound with what's already a tough experience being a kid, on top of that, then an immigrant kid, on top of that, then a Muslim immigrant kid, and how can we look at those layers, and how can we look at how that manifests and affects someone's identity. There's this scene between my young self and what is basically kind of his vision of Osama bin Laden.
Right, it's kind of like a dream.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dream. And it was based on a dream that I used to have when I was a kid, where it was just this weird thing where I thought, because we were the Muslim family in my town, we were so close to New York, I used to have this horrible dream that, bin Laden would come to our house thinking that because we were Muslims, we were his friends. And so I would have this nightmare of him sitting, in my kitchen, and I remember it was the scariest thing, scariest thing I think of. And I remember like having these nightmares where I'd be like, I'm not like you, like, why are you making it hard for us? And like all of these things that a kid who is 12 would think.
Right.
And for me, it did this boomerang thing where it kind of like, it started making me really afraid of who I was, but then I started to really own who I was. It flipped, because
it made you grow up quicker because you had to ask all these hard questions about your own history and identity that kids normally wouldn't have to start questioning.
Yeah, well, you start looking into your faith and be like, is it violent? Is it what everyone's saying? Is it this terrible thing? And then I realized it wasn't, and I realized, oh wait, no, this is actually something that I really identify with, and this is something that is really important to me, and became a huge part of my life. When I think back, I had really great classmates, I really had really great school, but it puts you in your head in a way, right? So starting it from there, and for me, just in my own personal life, most of my conflict has lived internally, because I don't present as anything too clearly. Like it's not like someone looks at me and is like, that dude's Muslim. Like, I don't think people know.
Right.
It's kind of like a step 2 of getting to know me. So a lot of the ways that I've looked at it, have been different. There are people I know who wear a headscarf. They face visible external discrimination. For me, that's not my story. My story is really that internal questioning, that internal struggle, and that creating the separation between you and those who are in front of you and around you.
Do you think that your parents, like looking back now as an adult, do you see more of what your parents had to go through than what you saw as a kid?
Totally, yeah. It didn't even hit me. I think they went through more than we went through.
Yeah.
Like it didn't even cross my mind until years later where I was like, oh, there's just kind of these periphery friends and people that were in our life that just kind of stopped being in our life at some point. And then I realized, oh, that was because of 9/11. Like that was like we kind of stopped talking to people. You know, we stopped doing all of that, and it feels on a level. Sometimes I get even a little annoyed with myself bringing it up or harping on it. But on the other hand, I feel a responsibility to talk about it because I think that if we don't talk about the way it's affected everyone, and if we don't talk about how like the humanity of how inhuman that was, affected kids like me, affected families like mine, and we mourn it just as much, that this thing caused us a lot of pain, not even because of what we received, but just because it was horrible.
Totally.
And I think opening up that conversation is, and seeing it from the angle of a kid like we did on our show, is a nuance that I would hope, if it's kind of can be brought to the conversation, is the kind of thing that creates more empathy and creates a better dialogue, a more nuanced dialogue. And those dialogues are kind of the only thing that can save us from more problems.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like what you just saw, then why not subscribe? Click right here for lots more off camera. And if you want to see the hour-long version of these conversations, I'm going to give you the secret link. Here it is, offcamera.com. Check it out.